All right, welcome everybody to the Radical Results Mastermind for Tuesday, February 12th. My name is Rob Goyette. I live in Colorado Springs with my wife and two sons. And from 2007 to 2014, most of you know, I spent a lot of time supporting the leaders in the coaching niche. So I really got to see behind the scenes how these leaders of coaches and small business owners, how they work and how they run, and support them with their marketing and their technology. So I got a lot of experience helping other people. And then in 2014, I thought, maybe I should be helping myself. So I started growing a list and nurturing the list and making what turned out to be irresistible offers to the list, and was able to build a six-figure business very quickly. So, and you guys can use that same model too. You build a list, you nurture the list, and you put irresistible offers in front of the list. Because remember, there are two factors that will cause people to buy from you or to hire you, and that's trust, and that's from growing and building the list, and an irresistible offer. If those two things are in place, then people will say yes. So I'm often asked, like, what's the magic formula for being successful? And that's it. Build and nurture a list, and then put irresistible offers in front of the list. That's at least the way this worked really well for me and for so many others. But let's keep the housekeeping short. Most of you already know all this stuff, but if you're in the Radical Results Mastermind, the normal version, we meet the first 2 Tuesdays of each month. If you're in Platinum, it's the first 3 Tuesdays of each month, always at the same time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. You get an announcement the day before the call. You get the replays after the call. If you're in Platinum, or if you've spent any money with me, really, you can get access to the archives that goes back to September of 2014. And just one last thing, housekeeping-wise, is to mention that this may likely become a product. So if you don't want to be part of the product, and I'm talking about all these calls, but this one in particular, just please anonymize yourself or save your questions and takeaways for afterward. Just send them to me, and I'll forward them to our guest, Catherine, if that's who they're meant for. But let's go ahead and get ready to jump right in. So please get out a pen and paper, or be ready to take notes on your computer. And I would like to reintroduce you for the second call, Catherine Gillette. And her model is called the Hero Method, and it's so cool. If you were on the last call, Catherine really shared a lot with us. And I'm just going to share my biggest takeaway, and that's Catherine's theme was the hidden power of story. And the power of it is that Catherine's method is proven to double every measurable metric in business. Think about that for a moment. When you have 3 metrics that are like connected, like opt-in page and webinar registration page and buying from your webinar, if you double each of those metrics, it's not doubling your results, and it's not even 2 plus 2 plus 2. It's not 6 times your results. It's 8 times your results. So her stuff works, and it works for list size. It works for response, which means getting people to say yes. It doubles revenue, and it doubles year-over-year growth. So if you're trying to grow a big small business, then the Hero Method is right there for you. So without saying much more, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Catherine. But I just she taught us so much on the last call. I'm excited to see, Catherine, what you'll share with us on this call. Are you there, and are you ready to take over the screen?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for that great introduction, Rob.
Yeah.
And let's get started.
Awesome.
All right, can you see that?
Perfect.
Oops. All right, and there we go. Okay, so welcome to our second call on the hidden power of story. I had just a ton of fun on our last call, and the feedback was really wonderful. It feels great to know that folks got so much value out of it. So if you happen to have missed the first call, I highly recommend you listen or watch it. It had a ton of value in there that we'll be building on today, but you can also just pick up with us here and go back and get more goodies from the previous call. Basically, what we're learning here is a paradigm shift in how to use the power of storytelling and where the real power of story is. And this lesson builds on what we learned last time, but they're also pretty interchangeable. What you're learning in these 3 lessons will change really the way you approach all of your marketing and sales efforts. It's going to add life and vitality and energy and excitement to every conversation you have, to everything you write. You're going to learn how to use the hidden power of story to convey even the most complex concepts in a way that your audience will be attracted to, will find captivating, will build trust with you, and will leave them wanting to learn even more from you. So this is the learning journey we're on together. The topic of the last call was where the hidden power of story lies. So that you learn the hidden art and science of story. We learned about the ancient bones of story and what the most important ancient bones of story are, which is positive emotional connection, not confusion or overwhelm, that trust is essential, and of course our fearless leader Rob always talks about trust, and he's absolutely right, and that's not just because it feels good, it's neurologically true. Mental simulations reenact your content in your audience's mind, and you can use all of these ancient bones of story to create any content for your business, not just stories. The big takeaway was that if you create emotionally connecting content that uses lots of mental simulations, your audience is far more likely to immediately engage with your content, respond to it, take action on it, and remember it. So today we're going to learn the universal shape of powerful stories. What you'll learn is the elements that create the shape of the most powerful and persuasive stories across time and cultures. You'll learn elements of story that you can use to reach anyone in any business, in any culture. You'll learn, hold on, I'm sorry, I lost my place here in my notes. Also I've got a bonus section at the end on the power of symbols, and that's going to be really fun. So symbols can come in the form of words or visuals or even color, and all of these have a powerful psychological impact on our audience. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And the topic of our final call next week will be how to monetize the hidden power story. You'll learn how to use what you've learned during calls 1 and 2 to craft content that attracts, engages, and converts. You'll learn how to take important concepts that your clients need to learn and to, quote, storyfy them in a way that makes those concepts much easier for your audience to get and learn and remember. You'll also learn the keys to picking the most impactful stories for your business. You'll learn what the right story to tell is and when. So before we begin, just set aside, distractions. You turn off your phone, or at least put it on airplane mode. Close those browser windows other than this one, and shut your door. Do whatever you need to do to limit distractions. And this really is important because the concept of multitasking is a myth. The brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And as Rob mentioned, make sure you got your pen and paper at the ready. You're going to have a lot of new information coming your way. Now, as we go along, please do share your questions in the chat box. I may not be able to respond to yours specifically this session, but I promise I will read them all and will incorporate as many as possible in the next module. Also, I do ask you from time to time to respond to something I'm saying that's really helpful to me and to others on the call. We're all of us in our own offices in far-flung parts of the world, and this little box reminds us that we're connected here in this time and virtual space. And personally for me, see, I can't see your chat comments as I'm presenting, but what I do see is the little chat icon at the bottom of the screen lighting up whenever someone enters something into the chat box, and that feels really wonderful. I feel like Pavlov's dogs, who heard the bell and started salivating. I see that light go off, and I feel really happy to know somebody's out there connecting with me about what I'm saying. So I don't know what you're saying, but the fact that you're saying something feels really great. So how about we try this? Whenever something sounds interesting, like an aha moment, or, oh, that's interesting and new to me, just go ahead and type in an exclamation point. And so anytime something strikes you as new or interesting, just enter an exclamation point, and that will trigger the light to go off, and we'll make a connection. Okay. Now, speaking of making a connection, I'd love to get to know you a bit better. So if you weren't on the call last week, Let us know where in the world you are. Last week we had folks from California to Pennsylvania, from Canada to Costa Rica. So that was really cool. So in addition to that, please let me know what your business is. Are you a coach, an author, a speaker? Or that would be really helpful to me to know as well. And wherever you are and whatever the basis of your business is, I'm assuming you're here because you want to learn more about story and storytelling, because you want to learn ways to use story to attract more people to you, to your offers, and to your mission and your vision. So if that sounds good to you, then welcome and welcome back. You're all in the right place. So Rob, can you read out what folks are putting in?
I sure can, yes. Let me just pull up the chat here. And so we got Laura Beth from Texas. We've got Jim from Mississauga, Canada. We got Nick in the UK. Lorna in Reno. And let's see, Carol Ann in southern New Jersey. So yeah, all over the place. Douglas from Alexandria, Virginia. I'm currently in Dexter, Missouri, which is a very small town in the southeast part of Missouri. And Nick says he's a life coach, and Laura Beth says her company is Cheerful Hearts. She's an inspirational poet, writer, speaker, and empowerment coach strategist. Carol Ann is a business coach and coach mentor. Lorna is a coach, author, and speaker. I'm kind of doing these in out of order, so they're kind of jumbled on my screen. But yeah, lots of people out there, and I think we're all really excited to be listening to you, Catherine.
Awesome. And I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. So we're representing the globe really nicely here today. That's great. So now I want us to set a positive intention for our time together today. As I said last time, I do this at the beginning of every lesson I teach because science has shown that setting intentions does have a measurable impact on learning outcomes. So since you know now that I'm an empirically trained scientist, this isn't woo, it's actually based on brain science. So go with me on this, really do this. Let's start by closing our eyes, and I'll guide us through 3 deep breaths. No matter what time it is where you are, you probably got out of bed and fell right into a high speed pace, because that's just what we do. So close your eyes. And we'll take our first breath and release that rush around pace of our day so far. We take our second breath to calm our entire nervous system down. And we take our third breath to slow our mind down so it will be more receptive to learning. And remember that you've set this time aside for yourself, for your learning, and there's nowhere else you need to be. Now I want you to set the intention that you're going to really lean into this learning today. And because of that, you're going to come away with at least one huge aha that will forever change the way you think about how story can work for you and your business. Are you in? Let's take a final breath to set that intention in. We open our eyes and we begin. Today we're going to explore the universal shape of powerful stories. These are the spinal cord of the ancient bones of story, the motifs of transformation and the archetypes of transformation. So just so a little background on what motifs are, they're basically the stages of a story, the scenes that happen in a certain order. First, this particular scenario happens, then the next, and so on. And like archangels are the big kahunas in heaven, archetypes are the big kahunas in story. They are character types that resonate with all human beings regardless of culture, regardless of the time in which the story was written. We went back 4,000 years last week, right? No matter what culture the writer came from, there's always a hero, there's always a mentor. We'll cover others as well, including really fun ones like Trickster and the Shadow. Now remember the story from the last call where we met a one-armed elder who recounted a story that taught everyone in his tribe how to avoid being attacked by a lioness? And remember how the stories that come to us across all time and all cultures have a bunch of things in common? And remember how those things in common are what I call the ancient bones of story? So today's ancient bones are the motifs and archetypes of transformation. By understanding these ancient bones, we'll be able to use them in creative and varied ways whenever we create our content. And by using them, our content will be far more engaging and memorable because we'll be connecting with our audience on this deep, unconscious level that we explored in our last call. I'm going to give you an overview of the motifs and archetypes of transformation first, and then we'll dive into how they work for us when we create messaging and content. The reason I call them the motifs and archetypes of transformation, by the way, is because all great stories are really stories of transformation. The hero is transformed in some, the world or the universe is transformed in others, but transformation always happens in these great stories. So let's start with the motifs of transformation. These motifs are basically the outline of all great stories. They're the way these great stories flow from beginning to middle to end. Only then do we have a story that we experience as deeply satisfying, because they all come together in a particular sequence, which creates a story that our unconscious minds are hardwired to be attracted to. In taking you through these motifs one by one, I'm going to use the example of Star Wars. The original Star Wars, by the way, the movie that is now called Episode 4, A New Hope. This was the movie where we first met Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, R2-D2, and Darth Vader. The reason I use this as an example is pretty much everyone has seen the movie, or at least has taken in through cultural osmosis the main characters and storyline. But just out of curiosity, please write in yes or no if you have or have not seen this movie. And no worries if you have not seen it. All of the characters and motifs are so well known by now, everyone always gets the references and examples that I use. So checking in, Rob, do we have any no's?
They're still coming in, but so far it's all yeses, me included.
Okay, good. All right, great. That's great.
Oh,
So
Matt, we do have one no. Yeah, so yeah, I won't call out the no, but maybe everybody can see it. I don't know, but yeah, so we do have one exception.
we have one no. Okay. All right, we have an outlier here in the group. All right. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be just fine. I have no doubt that you'll be just fine. And by the way, I really do recommend seeing the movie. It's a fantastic, it's truly a classic. It's a great, great story, and I recommend everybody go watch it again, especially after we go through this session today. But I'll also be throwing in references to Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, because those stories are based on these motifs and archetypes as well. So I think everybody will be just fine. Now you might be curious about this photograph, by the way. I use it because I have the copyright there too. The Star Wars images are pretty pricey. It's actually an old school Polaroid of R2-D2 CP3O and a guy on the set of Star Wars. Well, that guy is my brother. He was a mechanical animator in the movie industry and worked at Lucas Studios for quite a while. One of his jobs on Star Wars, the original trilogy, was keeping R2-D2 working. He also, by the way, created the mechanical Energizer Bunny. So that's my being cool by association story. So now I'm going to take you around the cycle to acquaint you with the motifs of transformation. These are the scenes, the scenarios that create these great stories. So the first phase is the wounded land. Every great story starts in the wounded land, and then the adventure begins. In the beginning of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is living in the wounded land. It's the desert planet he lives on with his aunt and uncle. He feels a sense that something's missing, but he doesn't quite know what it is. So that's him living in the wounded land, just day to day, going about his business, not knowing that things are really broken in his world. The next phase in the motifs of transformation is the quest. The quest is always personal. The hero realizes it's up to them to do something about how their world is broken. Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, and Katniss Everdeen all took action to fulfill their destiny, so to speak. And in the process, they learned a lot. So the quest is about taking action and learning along the way. Ultimately, what heroes are looking for is the elixir. This is what the hero needs to find in order to fix what's not working in their world. In Star Wars, the elixir is the good side of the Force. Using the Force wisely is the only way to destroy the Empire and save the universe. The mastery phase is when the heroes learn to master the elixir. Luke is trained by Obi-Wan and then uses the Force to destroy the Death Star. Harry uses the skills he has learned to destroy he who could not be named. And Frodo is finally able to destroy the One Ring by calling upon the inner strength he's gained from all of his adventures. All the great stories end with a profound resolution, a profound transformation. The hero has fully engaged in the quest and the mastery, has learned the skills or insights that they need in order to master the elixir. And because of that, the world or the universe is a better place. The wounded land is now healed. The Death Star, Lord Voldemort, the One Ring have all been destroyed, and every one of those worlds is a better place because of it. So now we're going to just do an overview to explore the archetypes of transformation. We're going to explore the hero, the mentor, the trickster, and the shadow. The hero is the one who is transformed by the adventure. Luke in Star Wars is transformed from a farm boy to a Jedi Knight. Harry Potter is transformed from a muggle, or so his aunt and uncle would have him believe, to a powerful wizard. Which reminds me, the hero is gender neutral. Katniss Everdeen is also a hero. I don't use hero or heroine. Hero works for both genders. The mentor is the source of wisdom that the hero taps into in order to discover and master the elixir. The role of mentors in all great stories is to give heroes helpful insight, training, advice, or even magical tools that all move the hero forward in his or her adventure. It is not possible for heroes to achieve their goal without a mentor. It just never happens. Obi-Wan, Gandalf, and many of the teachers at Hogwarts were all mentors. The trickster is an unpredictable force that unexpectedly changes the situation. Just when heroes think they know exactly how things work, trickster comes in and everything changes. Personally, I happen to love trickster. It's the ultimate change maker. In Star Wars, R2-D2 is actually a trickster. Every time he goes off like a loose cannon, he seems to be being a problem, but in fact, he is the impetus to the next part of Luke's adventure. If it weren't for R2-D2, for example, Luke wouldn't have met Obi-Wan Kenobi, and nothing would have changed in his life. The shadow is what keeps the hero from finding or mastering the elixir. Darth Vader, Lord Voldemort, and Saruman all wear the mask of the shadow. The shadow exerts a tremendous amount of energy trying to stop heroes from beginning the quest, from continuing the quest, from finding the elixir or mastering the elixir. The shadow is heavily invested in keeping the hero from succeeding in his or her adventure. My guess is there's some part of your brain thinking, well, this is all very interesting, Catherine, but what do these motifs and archetypes have to do with creating marketing and sales materials? Well, I'm going to respond with, excellent question. Let's explore that right now. This actually brings us to two major differences of the hero method as a paradigm shift in how marketing is done. As we talked about last time, the most important thing to do is create authentic emotional connection with your audience, right? The way marketing is done today, it's called business to business or business to consumer communication. It's marketing communication. But the hero method is focused on creating authentic human to human connection. That authentic emotional connection, and that's the thing that always has to come first, and that's what we covered last time. The second major shift is that current approaches to marketing tell us that you are the hero. Your solution is the hero, and the hero needs to be the center of attention. But the hero method is all about knowing that it's your audience that is the hero. They are the hero on a quest to find an elixir that will heal their wounded land. And you, my friend, you are your hero's mentor. How cool is that? Can you feel the shift in that? Probably a pretty natural shift, because based on what I've just learned about you guys, you already are a mentor. That's what you do for a living. Well, now you have permission to bring that role, to bring your natural role of being mentor into your marketing and sales efforts. Now, we'll be diving deeper into your role as mentor later on, but for now, let's explore the motifs and archetypes as they relate to creating marketing and sales materials. So let's go back to the Wounded Land. Remember, that's where Luke Skywalker is living on a desert planet. He feels a sense that something's missing, but he doesn't know what it is. So that's him living in the Wounded Land, just day to day, going about his business, not even fully realizing that things are as broken as they are. So your audience is in a similar place. They're going about their life not knowing that you exist. They're doing things that to you clearly seem broken or not as effective as they could be, but they are blissfully, or not so blissfully, unaware that there is another way. They just don't know that there is actually a better way to do things. The Wounded Land describes the world where things are broken, where people can't achieve what they want and need and are yearning for. This is the ordinary day-to-day world that exists for your audience way before your solution shows up in that world. The next phase is the quest. The hero wakes up somehow to realize that it's up to them to do something about how their world is broken. For your audience, the quest begins when your audience is motivated to go find a solution to their problem. The quest begins when they say there has got to be a better way to do this. They're finally so unhappy with their situation that they decide to do something about it finally. And like all heroes, their quest is very personal. Even if the solution is for the hero's business, in order to fix what is not working in their business's world, they will personally need to take action. And in taking action, in trying to figure out what to do about the problem, learning has to happen. It's about your audience gaining the knowledge they need in order to fix what's broken in their wounded land. That's really what the quest is all about. Ultimately, what heroes are looking for is the elixir. This is what the hero needs in order to fix what's not working in their world, what's broken in their world. In Star Wars, the elixir is the good side of the Force. Using the Force wisely is the only way to destroy the Empire and save the universe. Now, in your world, in your audience's world, the elixir is your solution, your expertise, your program, your product. It is the unique way that your elixir fixes what's missing or what's broken in your audience's wounded land. The mastery phase is when the heroes learn to master the elixir. This is when Luke is trained by Obi-Wan and then uses the Force to destroy the Death Star, right? The mastery phase happens after your heroes have bought your elixir. This is when you as mentor make sure that they have everything they need to fully master your elixir. To not just use it, but to really make it dance. So now we get to the healed land. The hero has fully engaged in the quest and the mastery, has learned the skills or insights they need to master the elixir. And because of that, the world is a better place. The wounded land is healed. So your audience embarked on a quest. They chose your solution, the elixir. They learned how to make it dance, the mastery. And now their world is a better place because of it. Their world has been transformed compared to how things used to work in their wounded land. They now have what they really wanted, perhaps more importantly, what they really needed, right? Because what they may want isn't really exactly the answer. It's what they actually really needed. And that's what you, as a brilliant mentor, have been able to give them. They now have what's most important to them. And what was wounded, what was broken, is now healed. So those were the motifs of transformation. So now let's explore the archetypes of transformation. We'll start with the hero. Now think in terms of Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen. Remember, the hero is the one who is transformed by the adventure. Think about the hero this way. The hero, first of all, is your audience, and the hero is transformed by the adventure, by going on the quest and finding and mastering the elixir that will fix what's broken in their wounded land. Now for the mentor, think in terms of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf, Dumbledore, and Haymitch, who is Katniss's mentor in the Hunger Games. The role of mentors in all great stories is to give heroes helpful insight, training, advice that move the hero forward in their adventure. It's simply not possible for heroes to achieve their goal without a mentor. So think about the mentor this way. Mentor gives your audience, the hero, the insight and advice they need to move forward in the quest, find the elixir, and master the elixir. Remember the scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan Kenobi is training Luke Skywalker to become a Jedi Knight? Luke is blindfolded by wearing a blast helmet and is slashing at the air with his lightsaber, failing to hit the flitting Jedi training ball. Yes, that's what it's called. I looked it up. Throughout the story, Luke relies on Obi-Wan to be his source of wisdom as he moves forward in his quest to become a Jedi Knight. For farm boy Luke to become a Death Star destroyer, Obi-Wan Kenobi was indispensable in Luke's transformation. Think about it. Luke's transformation would not have been possible without Obi-Wan Kenobi. I can think of no greater focus for every piece of content we create to provide honest insight and advice, to be the voice of mentor for your heroes. We've already learned that feelings are more important than facts, that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And there's no better way to build trust than by continually offering our heroes helpful insight and advice. That's the role of mentor. And it's also perfectly in sync with Rob's teachings as mentor, right? He's always talking about nurturing and offering value. The hero method sees mentor as the guiding light of your audience's experience throughout their entire journey. The goal is to create content that gives your audience the confidence to continue their journey with you and to conclude that you're the right choice for them, if in fact you are. Mentor is the source of the human and emotional connection that we've been seeing is essential. Content that acts like a mentor supports your audience in making essential transformations. In the Wounded Land, they were doing things the way that got them into the mess they were in. But over time, mentor shows the hero how to do it differently, shows them that there is a better way. That's why remembering that you are mentor is so essential. Okay, now the two archetypes we're going to be talking about now aren't characters like hero and mentor, where hero represents actual people who make up your audience and mentor represents you. The archetypes we're going to be exploring now represent forces or events that could affect your audience, that could affect your heroes in their lives and in their journeys. So let's start with the shadow. This is the fun one. For shadow, think Darth Vader and the Emperor in Star Wars, Saruman in The Lord of the Rings, and Voldemort in Harry Potter. The shadow is what keeps the hero from finding or mastering the elixir. The shadow exerts a tremendous amount of energy trying to stop heroes from beginning the quest, continuing the quest, finding the elixir, or mastering the elixir. So think about the shadow this way. What keeps your heroes from bringing your solution in? What keeps them from saying yes? These are usually fears, doubts, confusion, limiting beliefs, right? It's usually their own inner, what do I want to say? This is basically what's going on in their own internal psyches that are really the most powerful shadow aspects, right? They're keeping them from saying yes. So some examples of shadow are fears. People are often afraid of change. Just the concept of change can stop people from saying yes. The fact is humans are hardwired to resist change. They say that even births and marriages, even happy changes, can be extremely stressful for human beings. So as mentor, if you understand that your audience could be fearful just simply about the idea of changing to your new way, you can reassure them that all will be well. Doubts. People might doubt that there's a better way. They might think, well, I've tried everything out there, and why should anything else result in anything different? So if that aspect of shadow exists in your audience as mentor, you can create special content that addresses those doubts and reassures the hero that all will be well. And confusion. There may be too much conflicting information out there in the world, and your heroes are confused about which direction to go in, which solution to choose. If you thought about this possibility and realize that it's true for your audience, that then empowers you to create content that clarifies all the options and helps them make the right decision for themselves. Remember from the first lesson how confusion creates resistance? As mentor, this is a great opportunity to turn that draw away from response into a draw toward response. And limiting beliefs, they're different than fears. Your heroes may simply believe something is true that you know is not true. For example, your heroes may believe that they're just not able to change. I'm such and such years old. I haven't been able to change so far. I just figure I'll never be able to change. If this is true for your audience, you as mentor can let them know that you understand what it is to have that limiting belief. Maybe you used to have it too. And you can help them gain a more expansive view of what's possible. So by knowing the shadow, by identifying the shadow, you as mentor can use that as an opportunity to connect on more meaningful levels with your audience. That you can overcome this force of resistance in your audience's mind by understanding it and connecting with them from that place of understanding and compassion. So now let's move on to the trickster. And thinking about trickster, think R2-D2 in Star Wars and Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So the trickster is an unpredictable force that unexpectedly changes the situation. Your heroes are in the Wounded Land, and just when they think they know exactly how things work, the trickster comes in and everything changes. So think about the trickster this way. Trickster impacts your audience in unexpected ways. It could be that suddenly things aren't working the way they have before. Basically, it's anytime something unexpected happens. Really, that's just the big summary here. Trickster makes stories a lot more interesting, and we'll talk about how to use trickster in the next lesson. I'm remembering one of my mother's favorite sayings whenever trickster took her by surprise, she'd shout out, "That's not supposed to happen." So whatever it is that's not supposed to happen is exactly what can motivate your audience to find a solution. They're in their wounded land, thinking things are okay as they are, and trickster happens, and it can be exactly the thing that triggers the quest for them. An example of trickster could be, let's say you're a yoga instructor or fitness coach or massage therapist. Trickster for one of your clients could be an unexpected injury. I remember going about my life, my back had been a weak spot for me most of my adult life, and I had done nothing to try to remedy it. Then one day I'm just simply throwing a paper towel into a trash can and my back ripped. It felt like a knife in my back, very intense, very unexpected. And it forced me to go find a massage therapist because it was like, okay, that's it. I am not going through this again. I got to find a fix so this doesn't happen again. The fact is the unexpected happens and trickster happens. So understanding the possible trickster elements in your audience's life when they're in the wounded land, this is a great way to connect with them. Now just remember though that trickster is optional. There's no need to force trickster into your story. It just may not be part of the story for your heroes. but it can show up in surprising places. So spend some energy looking for it. Kind of always keep an eye out for it. It can really bring stories to life, but really, truly don't feel any need to force it. Here are two more examples of Trickster. These are surprise events that could really motivate someone to find a solution. So for example, someone goes for an annual physical, and after years of excellent test results, their cholesterol readings are at dangerous levels. So that's the impetus then, because they think, I've really got to do something about this. So they start seeking out a diet coach. Or a business just got hit with a big tax bill because they weren't tracking expenses and deductions accurately. So that's the impetus that makes them realize they've got to find a better way to track their expenses and deductions. So Trickster is basically a surprise event, an unexpected event that really motivates the hero to find a new way to do things. So now I want to share some bonus bones with you. I call this the power of symbols. Symbols are a thing that represents or stands for something else, right? Symbols are really powerful. They immediately connect with our unconscious. You can use symbols to instantly convey very complex concepts or abstract concepts, including emotion, which is a running theme here in our series, right? Now, there are two main kinds of symbols that you want to use a lot. The first are basically written symbols, otherwise known as metaphors. Let me give you an example. It was after World War II, and astrophysicists identified a spatial anomaly that they called gravitationally completely collapsed objects. And it was, the ones who discovered it were fascinated by it, but it didn't really quite catch on. There wasn't a whole lot of interest in it. Now, when in a lot of businesses, when there's a phrase that has a lot of words in it and it's technical, the fact is it perfectly described what this phenomenon was. What companies tend to do is they'll turn it into an acronym. So it's gravitationally completely collapsed object, right? GCCO. Well, to most people, to you, to me, neither of those really have any meaning. Remember from the last lesson how important emotional meaning is for folks to really get what we're wanting to say? So along comes John Archibald Wheeler. He was actually a colleague of Niels Bohr, who was a quantum physicist, and Albert Einstein, who I'm sure you're familiar with, who was the expert in relativity. They were all three working together to try to find the unified theory. So we're not talking about dumbing anything down. We're talking about people, this guy, John Wheeler, was right up there with the best of them. He came up with a different name for this spatial anomaly. He came up with the metaphor black hole. So now suddenly this thing that's actually in fact a gravitationally completely collapsed object, now it's a black hole, right? And now people are saying, wait a minute, there's something black in space, but isn't space already black? And there's a hole in space, isn't space already a vacuum? So now people are interested, now other physicists are interested, now the media is interested, and now all of a sudden funds start pouring in to explore, to support the exploration of the spatial anomaly. So that's metaphor. The second kind of symbol I would want you to use a lot are visual symbols. You can use visual symbols freely and easily in your websites, ebooks, presentations of any kind, webinars, speeches, lessons. Visual symbols are as old as humanity itself. We are hardwired to emotionally respond to visual symbols. That's why they're important to us in conveying concepts in ways that connect deeply with our audience. If you think symbols are just lines on paper, what's your reaction to this? For those of you listening to the audio replay, we're looking at a swastika, a Nazi Germany version of a swastika. So this black and white image elicits a very strong negative emotion, right? Now, how about this one? Now, this one may be generational. This is a peace symbol, and it packed a powerful punch back in the 1970s. So now, what's your reaction to this one? This is the yin-yang symbol. Now, symbols are cultural, so be sure to use symbols that you know your audience, that you know your heroes will respond to in the emotional way that you want them to. So you want to use symbols that will create the emotional connection that you want to create. But some symbols are universal and as old as the ancient bones of story themselves, like spirals. The spiral is one of the oldest symbols known to man, and it still has a resonance with us today. You may not be able to put your finger on what it means to you, but it does resonate on some level, right? It's not just lines on paper. What ancient symbols like this mean is a fascination of mine, but it's beyond the scope of this program. So suffice it to say that symbols do have meaning far beyond the shapes that appear on paper. Now, take a look at this visual. It's a photograph of a sunset. Notice your emotional response to this sunset. Oops, sorry. It's actually a sunrise. Now notice the difference in your emotional response to the sunrise. That's because sunrises symbolize something different than sunsets. So if you're wanting to convey a concept that's about new beginnings or, let's say, gaining new energies in some way, you could use a visual symbol like a sunrise to support the deeper emotion and meaning of that concept. Or you could use a symbol of spring. Can you feel the difference between spring and winter? You know, winter is a metaphor for something completely different than what spring symbolizes, right? Color also has symbolic meaning. This is a recent climate change map that shows the change in global temperature since the year 2000. Blue represents a cooling trend, and orangey brown to brown represents a warming trend. The color choice is perfect because you end up with this really ugly color all over the world. And that's the emotional response they want us to have. This is an ugly problem. But if a different organization took the very same data and chose cooler to be represented by gray and warmer to be green, you'd look at the map and think, oh good, the earth is warming up, yay, look how green it's getting. Do you see what I mean? The power that color can have. By the way, remember the discussion last week about being careful with facts and charts and graphs? This is indeed a graph, but it's also a great example of how to share facts because it's all based on data, but it's presented in a way that makes that data easily accessible because they've used the symbol of color to convey the message they want to get across. So instantly, you don't have to even read the small print at the bottom of what those colors mean. You get a sense of doom, basically, right? That's the emotional response just by looking at this. So I'm going to share an example of using images and metaphors with you. This is from a real client that I'm working with. And I'm going to show you a few of the slides from their investor deck. They're actively seeking more investors to grow their business. So this is serious stuff, right? It's a big deal for them. Think Shark Tank, right? So my clients need investors to be so attracted to their message that the investors will want to give my clients a lot of money. So this is the first slide, that they had before they brought me in. This is what they had before they brought me in. So there's a photograph in the background of the savannah with a lion, and the headline is basically, it's Zebrify the way you sell. Okay, the next screen is two funnels, and what they were, the speaker's notes for this, this is what they were saying to their investors. The traditional sales pipeline contains few very good prospects. There isn't a way to prioritize one deal over another. Historically, according to Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics, only 15% of the deals that end up in the traditional sales funnel close. This results in massive waste of 85%. Contrast this with Zebrify, AI-enabled. Are you lost yet? Have I lost you? Do you want to go do something else? This is an example of leading with facts. This is the problem with leading with facts. So This is what I'm recommending to the client. These aren't final visuals, it's just these are the concepts that I have recommended that they adopt, which they're going to adopt. You're going to have a designer make it all pretty, but this is just the idea. So now we're looking at the same, that first screen again, the first slide, but instead of a lion in the background, we've got a herd of zebras in the background. Now it says, zebra fly the way you sell. You still may not know exactly what that means, but again, we've got the symbols and the images are all kind of tied together. So this is going to create more of a curiosity response, a draw toward response versus the confusion of zebra fly, but there was a lion before, is kind of confusing. So then the next slide is going to be, quick, raise your hand when you see the zebra. And do you see this? This is this fun cartoon, even childlike cartoon of different animals, and a zebra is amongst them. And I really recommend that my clients use something similar to this, to have it be fun rather than a rational, actual photographs of zebras versus elephants versus giraffes. Because again, we're making an emotional connection here. And everybody's a child at heart. I don't care how much money they've got. There's every human being is a child at heart. So this is the second slide. Quick, raise your hand when you see the zebra, and the presenter explains, just like you can identify a zebra right away, you can also identify the perfect prospect. That's why we call perfect prospects zebras. And I'm going to show you how we help companies zebrify the way they sell. So now what we have is we have the hit or miss funnel, and compared to the AI, which is artificial intelligence enabled sales conduit. So this is a different visual, right? The hit or miss sales funnel has all the animals going into it, and the artificial intelligence enabled sales conduit has only zebras going into it. So compare that to this was their original beginning, right? Now, so I'm just going to go back to this one. So basically in the flow, this is the thing where we just go. So see, in the hit or miss funnel, basically anything that looks like an animal goes into the funnel, which is why typically people only get 15% close rate. But with Zebrify, artificial intelligence means that the only folks going into your sales conduit are going to be zebras. That's why we get 90% close rates. And so you see the difference between that. Oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. So that and this. Now, after you've made that explanation, then you can go ahead and dive into the details here. So the facts, would be where you would talk about the facts. Also notice that instead of traditional sales funnel, I recommend hit or miss. Hit or miss is a metaphor that's really, it expresses something emotional versus traditional sales funnel. So that's what this was. Originally they had traditional sales funnel, and I recommend they use hit or miss sales funnel. So this, again, this is concept, not final art, but in terms of creating that initial, essential, emotional connection and really telling the story of the solutions paradigm shift, this is how it can be done in just a few images. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Now, to recap, these are ancient bones of story that I highly recommend you use as often as you can. You use written symbols, metaphors, remember black hole or the hit or miss sales funnel, the visual symbols, remember changing using the animals as visual symbols, and then even color, as we talked about. So they are all shortcuts that immediately create those essential, unconscious emotional connections that we need to create in order to deepen our connection with our audience. Now, you may have noticed that I use a lot of metaphors. I use a lot of visual symbols. I use a lot of color, very important part of my presentations. All of that is absolutely conscious on my part to create the most engaging presentation possible so you can learn as much as possible. Instead of overwhelming you with the jargon and data of the neurology and anthropology and neuroeconomics that all of this is based on, I use words and phrases and visuals and stories that convey those concepts in ways that, as we talked about last time, in ways that facts simply can't work. So, okay, to review. We learned the motifs of transformation, The Wounded Land, how your audience's world is broken. The Quest, your hero's search for an elixir. The elixir is the solution to their problem. Hopefully that's your solution. The Mastery, learning to master the elixir. And the Healed Land, the transformation is complete. Now that they've left their wounded land, gone on a quest, found and mastered the elixir, the transformation is complete. Their wounded land is now healed. We also learned the archetypes of transformation. The hero, which is your audience. The mentor, which is you, the voice of wisdom in every connection you have with your audience. The trickster, when your hero is in the wounded land, trickster is the unexpected thing that happens that ends up triggering the quest. And the shadow, any resistance that keeps your prospective customer from saying yes. The shadow tends to be fears and doubts and limiting beliefs. In creating connecting content, promise yourself that from this day forward, you will not talk about how your solution is the hero that saves the day, because it's your audience that's the hero. And your solution is the elixir they seek that will heal their wounded man. And it's your job as mentor to give them helpful insights that honor and support their process of transformation. And that process of transformation is the shift from seeing things the old way, the wounded land way, and eventually seeing it to your new healed land way. You are mentor. That's an awesome role. Your marketing and sales efforts are all about you guiding your heroes through their story of transformation. They are the story. This is their story of transformation. Remember that mentors are never focused on themselves. So always stay awake to the very human tendency to be self-focused and right that wrong as quickly as you can. In fact, I still struggle with this because I'm so jazzed and excited about the hero method. I could just talk about the hero method all day long, but that's not going to be of value to you. You need to be able to present it in ways and create content that's of value to you, that allows me to share the hero method with you. And there's a lot of behind the scenes aspects of the hero method that I will never share with anybody other than my dearest friends who are willing to listen to me whinge on about it, right? What I actually as mentor share and teach to my heroes is really the most important focal point. It's not everything that I possibly know about the subject. I'm hoping that this is feeling really good to you. I'm hoping that the role of mentor feels energizing to you. Instead of having to put on the hat of a salesperson, you can step into the role of mentor, the role that is true and right for you, the role that will truly authentically create those essential human-to-human positive emotional connections between you and your heroes. So, as for this week's homework, one of the things I do is I offer an 8-week program that guides people through a thorough messaging and content creation process. But in this week's homework, I've chunked it down so you'll have a nifty shortcut to creating your own stories of transformation, and it won't take more than 10, 15, 20 minutes. So this is another piece that's important. It's going to be in preparation for our call next week. And by the way, you'll have access to a handy handout that will take you through this step by step, and I'll show you how to get that. So we start in the wounded land. What you'll do here is you'll get clear on how the land is wounded, how your hero's world is broken because you're not in it. So these are the questions to answer for this phase. These questions are about how things work in your hero's world before they have you in it. So the first question is, how are things not working for them? What are their most pressing issues because they don't have you in their life? And the second question, what have they already been wanting and needing? What are they yearning for? And the third question is, what can't they do? What can't they accomplish? What can't they achieve because your elixir is not in their world? Now, here are some examples of Wounded Land messages for a fictional weight loss program. So that first question is, how are things not working? What are the most pressing issues? So the heroes are in their wounded land and they try diet after diet and nothing works. The diets are too rigid or boring, or they're hard to stick to. They feel horrible about themselves. They feel like a failure. See how this is how things are not working, what's really pressing on them. The second question is, what have they already been wanting and needing? They feel an urgency to lose weight. They know that their health is at risk, right? So they're really needing to find a way to lose weight. And the third is, what can't they do? What can't they accomplish? So they can't attain a healthy weight and keep it off. They're trying every diet and exercise program out there, and they're working really hard at it, but they always fail. Their knees and back pain keep them from being active, which makes losing weight that much harder. So keep in mind these messages are not fully fleshed out. You'll come up with a number of answers to each question. You might have, 10 answers to each question. That's totally fine. These are just quick examples to get you started. And again, all of this will be available to you in a handy handout you can use to guide you through this. So that was the wounded land. Now we're going to jump to the healed land. Your audience embarked on a quest, chose your solution, the elixir, and learned how to make it dance during the mastery phase. So the world is now a better place because of it. At this point, it's super easy to create your stories of transformation. Here's how. So you can use, and again, you can use the handy handout for this, or you can create a table of your own that looks like this. On the left is the column is their land is wounded because. So these are basically answers to those questions that we just asked, right? So you see this as they try diet after diet and nothing works. They feel an urgency to lose weight. They feel horrible about themselves. So those are the three answers to those three questions. So basically that's all you'll do. You'll just enter your answers to the three wounded land questions on the left side of the chart. And then you'll consider how each of those will change after they've mastered your elixir. And you'll enter that on the right side. So here's an example of that. In the wounded land, they would try diet after diet and nothing would work. Then, after they bought and mastered the elixir, they were able to easily achieve a healthy weight. So imagine like in between these two columns is your elixir and then mastering your elixir. So it's kind of a before and after. It's very much a before and after scenario. So they felt an urgency to lose weight. That's the second item here. They knew their health was at risk. Then after they bought and mastered the elixir, they're now able to maintain a healthy weight with ease. When they were in the wounded land, they felt horrible about themselves. They felt like a failure. Then after they bought and mastered the elixir, they now feel empowered. You see how these are all little stories of transformation? So why is creating this chart important? Stories of transformation are the most inspiring content you can create. There are a number of uses for these messaging concepts. Just about every piece of content you create can use these messages in one way or another. And we'll definitely be covering that in the next lesson. But just one example is testimonials. You can use charts, your own version of this. You can use them for testimonials. If you ask your clients to tell one or more of these stories, like you'll say, oh yeah, one of my clients, that actually is their story right there. So you ask them to tell that story in their own words. Those testimonials will be way more powerful than the usual generic testimonial. These guys are great, really loved working with her, Testimonials based on stories of transformation will deeply connect with your heroes because these mini stories tell your heroes a mini story that helps them see how others have gone from where your heroes currently are to where they want to be. Does that make sense? Because they say, oh, see, that person's telling a story. That could be my story. Because certainly what they're talking about is where I am now, and there they are having had this transformation. So all of these are different stories of transformation that build the trust that maybe, you know what, maybe there is a better way and maybe this could actually work for me. So I have a bunch of handy handouts for you. All you have to do is email me at story@kgillette.com and I'll send them on all over. So for those of you listening to the replay, it's story, S-T-O-R-Y, at KGILLETT.com. So the first one I have is actually a collection. It's a story shaping kit. It has a blueprint chart to create the stories of transformation we just went through, from the wounded land to the healed land. It will take you through the questions we just went through and the before and after chart that we just filled out together. It'll take you through all of that step by step. It also has visual infographics with the motifs of transformation and the archetypes of transformation with summaries of what they're all about. It also includes a bonus handout for you called The Symbolic Meaning of Colors. Remember earlier we explored the symbolic meaning that colors can have? Well, this handy handout describes various symbolic meanings of colors. For example, blue can symbolize the collective unconscious. It can symbolize intuitions. Blue can also symbolize a function of thinking. Blue also symbolizes the ocean, which can also symbolize the unconscious. Whereas brown can symbolize, it's an earthy color, right? So that can actually symbolize intuition and instinct. It's also an autumnal color of autumn, right? So it can symbolize decline and lows. So remember that the climate change chart, how that was, autumnal colors, declines and lows. So this can be really handy for creating logos, website design, PowerPoint presentations. Anytime you use color in your content, this handy handout can be really helpful to you in making sure you use colors that symbolize the emotion you're wanting to convey. So filling out this little chart is your homework for this week. Again, it'll take only about 15-20 minutes, and you'll be all ready for our next call, which will be to use these stories of transformation to create various kinds of content. But I also want to follow up on the homework from last week. There were questions about the homework assignment. It was an exercise to create your own mental simulations. Now there's still time to do it, no worries. But what I did to help you with that is I created a handy handout for that as well. And hopefully this will be helpful. It's an example from one of my clients. She's a doctor, not a writer, and she wrote this great scene, chock full of mental simulations and emotion in less than 15 minutes. So again, remember the homework was just basically go back in time to a happy childhood moment and just talk about it, just write about it, write about what your feelings and sensations were. And this is what she wrote. Warm enveloped my body. I wriggled more, going deeper into the sand to allow the sensation of warmth to bring comfort to my being. The sun was beating down, adding to the sensation of being nurtured. Then I jumped up and ran into the rolling surf, diving into the waves. I surfaced and looked out at the expanse of the ocean, deciding which wave to catch back into shore. It is exhilarating coasting on the top of the wave as it propels me back towards the beach. Smiles of joy and fun are shared between my friends and I as we body surf the waves. There is the taste of salt on my lips. The growls of hunger beckon me from the water. It is time for one of Betty's $1 burgers. Oh, the taste is so good. A toasted sesame bun, meat patty, lettuce, onions, and tomato with sauce. Yum. Just the right combination to satisfy anyone's hunger. The perfect way to end the day at the beach. Again, what did you experience? Were you there at the beach, right along with her, right? It's really that easy, and I want you to have the experience of knowing how easy it is to create these essential mental simulations and positive emotions. I know you can do it. Everybody who's taken my course can do it. I know you can, and I really want you to have that experience. So again, it'll only take 15-20 minutes, and when you do it, you'll have taken a huge step toward creating those essential positive emotional connections and mental simulations. So again, email me at story@kgillette.com, and I'll send you this handy handout, and it'll take you through the exercise step by step. Honestly, I know you'll be glad you did. I know you'll be glad you did. Also, another thing that might be helpful, this is an example actually of a mastery phase tool. I call them slide guides. So I invite you to watch this module again because it's so chock full of information. But before you do, get this slide guide. And what you can do is you'll go through the lesson with me again, slide by slide, but you'll be able to write your notes off to the side of each one of the slides. Pretty cool, huh? Now, I'm aware that doing this homework may take a bit of courage, but I promise you, my inbox is a very safe place for you to experiment with these lessons. Now, for our final call, you'll learn how to monetize the hidden power story. You'll discover how to use what you've learned during calls 1 and 2 to actually craft content that attracts and engages and converts. You'll learn how to take important concepts that your clients need to learn and storyfy them in a way that makes those concepts much easier for your audience to get and learn and remember, just like what you've been experiencing here in this series. We'll go through shaping the top 3 story-related kinds of content, your signature story, customer stories, and testimonials. Those are all story-related content, but you'll also learn the top 3 ways to use the power of story in all the content you create, not just story-related content. For example, you'll learn how to use the hidden power of story to create highly responsive emails. And finally, we'll cover how to overcome any shyness you have about getting that first draft started, and you'll start moving through the writing process with confidence all the way to the final version. So I hope you'll join us live again next week. Now we're going to get to Q&A next, but before we do, I want to thank you for being here with me today. I hope you got a ton of value out of it, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you again next week. And until then, remember, keep saying yes to the adventure. Now, as for Q&A, there's actually a question from the last session that I would like to answer. The question was, is it always a problem to tell a negative story? I'm trying to reach teachers of teens who are bright but far behind in reading. And one of my most vivid childhood memories is how devastated I was my first day of school when the very dominating teacher instructed us to go home and read the first 3 pages of a reader without telling us how. And so this ties back into when in the first lesson I was talking about being very careful about using fear and anxiety. But in this example, this is not what I would consider a negative story. A negative story would be a story that never has a happy ending. It's just negative and negative and negative, and it just is about fear and anxiety and fear and anxiety. That would be a negative story. But this would be a story, I'm assuming, that there's a happy ending to this, right? That there's lessons that you learn because of that experience that you had. You are a unique mentor in being able to teach teachers, how to work with them who are behind in reading. So that would not be a negative story. It would have a happy ending. Because again, remember, in the wounded land, things are broken. And it absolutely can start with that, quote, negative, because things are broken. Things are not working the way they could be working. And that's actually the beginning of all great stories. The wounded land is broken. So if you haven't already, be sure to share your ahas. What were your big ahas for today? Those are fun and helpful to us too. So I'm just going to leave this slide on, and you can be sure to jot down my email address so you can get all your handy handouts. The homework guidelines and the bonus symbolic meaning of colors. Don't miss out on that. And I promise I won't reply with trying to sell you something. So it's good for you to share your email address with me. Okay, so let's move into Q&A. Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, well, first I just want to say, holy cow. Thank you for sharing all this, Catherine. This is amazing. This might be one of the highest value calls or series of calls. You've totally gone way beyond expectations. So I just really want to thank you for not holding back and giving us just a phenomenal method to ultimately to sell our products and programs, but to really connect with our audience. So just my personal and heartfelt thank you, Catherine. That's awesome stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That feels really good to hear. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome. So things are coming in, and I will say, let's see, Jim says, takeaway, the whole definition of the client being the hero, my solution being the elixir, and me being the mentor, absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. I know it's this, and yet when you learn it, it kind of like it totally makes sense, right? It's this radical, completely different way of seeing it, and yet it's kind of like, of course, it totally makes sense. That's awesome. I'm glad that resonated with you.
Yeah, and Joanne kind of builds on that too. Like the biggest aha is that I'm not the hero, I'm the mentor. That one got me too. It's like, that's a great way to think of it. So yeah, very, very cool, Catherine.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep. Tracy says, thank you so much. Awesome. So we all feel like your stuff is awesome. Yay.
That's good.
Yeah, make sure you guys ask questions too. I appreciate the takeaways for sure, but there's also time for questions. So any more takeaways, any questions while those are coming in, Catherine? Maybe I just need to think through it a little bit more, but I'd love your input. I think you could save me on a lot of thought. But one strategy that I use to help people sort of build their email list or get people onto their list, a lot of people have like just this wonderful solution that works for everyone and helps them do all these good things. And I tell them to find one particular problem and use that to bring people into their world, and then they can go on to share all the wonderful things. And I was just kind of wondering, I mean, that almost sounded like the trickster to me. Like, I don't know if this is the right way to think of it or not, but I was thinking, let's just say it's you're on a low carb weight loss plan, and the trickster might be carbs. And so drawing them into, I don't know, so all these carbohydrate alternates, same great taste and no carbs or whatever. I wonder, do you think the trickster is something to lead with when trying to attract people into your world, or is it really more about the wounded lamb? Like, what would you consider the way to bring people into your world before you start giving them all of the healed land stuff?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. So understanding their wounded land, which could include trickster, that's the thing. So what you're doing, that's that's the emails going out. That's reaching out to them. That's going and finding them and saying, you know what, I understand. I understand how things are wounded for you. And like you say, it could be one problem. It can be, and I think that's a really smart idea. It can be one problem, but it can be a big problem that can be broken down into smaller problems, obviously. But you don't want to overwhelm. You don't want to confuse. You do want to use as focused as you can be. But what you've done is identify that, you know what, most of the folks in my world who work with me and get the biggest goodie out of what I have to offer, they tend to have this one problem. I think that's a perfectly good way to go. And so you're talking about that problem in terms of the wounded land, in terms of how it affects them, and in terms of their, their experience.
Okay, so it may not be the trickster as much being in the spotlight, more as like one problem in the wounded land, and just acknowledging that there may be other wounds out there too, but kind of keeping it in the context of the wounded land. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, absolutely. And it also, so then you have a series of emails, let's just say, let's stay with emails, that can each be touching on a different problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what I teach, as far as leading with a problem and then bringing them into your world and showing them all the other problems you can help them solve. Sounds like we're on the same page. And
yes,
in your context, all those other problems, they would all be part of the wounded land. And some of them may not apply to people in that land, but they can certainly say, oh yeah, I guess that probably exists. Doesn't really affect me. But this one over here, that really affects me, and that's why I got on your list in the first place, that type of thing.
Exactly. Now, the thing is, trickster kind of fits into the wounded land, so it can be there. So, for example, one of the things like my story, are you sick and tired of just leaning down to throw something away and your back goes out? Those unexpected things, even though it's kind of a pattern, but it still feels like this trickster element every time it happens, right?
Yeah.
So you can absolutely, that's part of kind of the wounded land, is there are trickster elements that happen, whatever's unexpected. That looks like, oh man, this is really bad luck. But actually the thing about trickster is that it turns out to be a teacher,
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I want to make sure we get to other people too. I don't want to just hog the microphone here, but Jim says, question, Catherine, I respect your integrity that you're not trying to sell us anything, but will we ever get the opportunity to learn how to go deeper with you, perhaps after the fact?
Well, of course.
Yay!
That's an easy one. Yeah, absolutely. You can, again, email me at, story@kgillette.com and get you all the goodies. And actually, what's kind of a heads up, what I'm going to be offering is at the end of the next session, I'm going to be offering a free coaching call to be really helping you with your content and actually shaping your content. So that's another way.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we got more comments coming in over in the chat. So I have to scroll quite a bit. I think there's a lot here. Okay, so all right. So okay, so Laura Beth says, I'm able to do this in person, but have a hard time translating it online. Any suggestions?
Like in terms of, I'm assuming she means in terms of being mentor.
I think so.
That kind of.
Yeah, Laura Beth, can you tell us a little bit more? We'll come back to you. Summer says, thanks, love it, especially the symbols. Love the Zebrify example. I'm just going to keep reading these. Just interrupt me if you wish. Nick says, is a coach a subtle mentor as they don't tell what they know? Oh, so maybe that's a question for you to answer. Is a coach a subtle mentor as they don't tell what they know? Does that make sense? Like in coaching, sometimes we're not just teaching. We're sort of letting the client uncover their own stuff. But I would think like, most of the mentors in most of the popular movies, they probably ask the questions that cause the heroes to come up with the answers. So maybe that's a correlation to being a coach. I don't know. Does that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's what the best mentors are. They're not lecturers, they're aware of the hero and what the hero needs to learn next, and also open to the questions. I mean, some of the great mentors, the yogis in the East, they don't just lecture, they answer questions.
Yeah.
They don't say anything until the person has asked them the question first. Gotcha. So there's lots of different ways you can be mentor, lots of different ways you can be mentor. I think those are always the best mentors, are the ones who aren't lecturing. They're letting the hero be the hero. They're honoring that it's the hero's journey that they are supporting.
It sounds like coaching is a perfect fit for this.
Absolutely.
So Douglas says, it sounds like the trickster or something is key to get the hero to take some action. And I know, Catherine, you said that the trickster was optional, but certainly it sounds like the trickster could cause the hero to take action.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that's fun to look for, is the trickster in our audience's world, in our hero's world, because it makes for really good stories. Because it is one of those things that people can relate to, even if it hasn't happened to you. Again, using those mental simulations, you can create a really interesting story. And absolutely, trickster is the element that just when you think life works like this, trickster comes in and everything changes, and that change means a higher likelihood that the person is going to say yes to the call to adventure, that the hero is going to actually go on the quest. Because trickster happened.
Yes.
It is the impetus. Trickster is or can be the impetus for actually stepping out of the comfort and the known of the wounded land. The wounded land may suck, but at least we know it. We kind of have our own workarounds about how to deal with it. But trickster can be the thing that says, okay, that's it. I gotta step out of this comfort zone of this wounded land and start on a quest to find an answer for myself.
Perfect. Lots more for me to relay to you. Although I'll field this one from Sherry. Will those of us in the basic group get to hear next week's call? No, actually the third call is for platinum members, but Sherry, the list price for platinum is $47 a month. But I'd be happy for anybody on this call that wants to jump in at $19 a month. And then if you want to cancel after the first call, that's okay with me. But I'd love to have you guys in the group. I've tried to make $19 like a no-brainer. The platinum members tell me all the time they can't believe everything they get for $19 a month. One thing I did not mention at the start of the call is that platinum members also get two live Q&A calls where we all meet on Zoom. This is a Zoom webinar. We meet on normal Zoom, and it's really just a bunch of hot seat coaching. And that's the second and third Wednesday of each month. So I've really tried to make platinum irresistible at just now $47 a month, but let me know if you want the $19 a month link and I'll give it to you guys. If nothing else, what Catherine's sharing with you is worth way more than $19. So I'd love to have you at least join Platinum for a month and get that third call, because gosh, this is fantastic stuff. I'll go on and share that Lorna says, love your delivery. This is how I like to teach online workshops. I am a former public school teacher. And let's see. Yeah, there's just so much more. So I'm gonna keep reading. But again, Catherine, interrupt me if you want me to stop. Carol Ann says, thank you, Catherine and Rob. I teach story too, but this is a great perspective. The mentor metaphor is a real mindset shift, and I can label the tricksters on my own journey. I like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then circling back to Laura Beth. So let me try to find her first question to tie it all together. So, okay, yeah, that was about Laura Beth says, I'm able to do this in person, but have a hard time translating it online. Any suggestions? And then she writes, marketing and sharing my story, which gains clients, but online I am unable to connect my story and gain clients that way. And she says, does this make sense?
Yeah, and so we'll be talking about that next week. That's actually how to take this and turn it, take this, the mentoring, I call them mentoring messages. So that chart, that before and after chart, really important piece of this is how do you bring the voice of mentor into your content, because that's what you can do when you're in person, because you're showing up as mentor. And then this is this next step of how to do that actually when you're writing words. So I hope that answers your question.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. I thought I was going to add something to that, and now it flew out of my head. Oh yeah, I was going to say, yeah, and that's so we should all do our homework before that third call, it sounds like. So yeah, once again, just to highlight your email address, this is the best way for people to reach out and get their handouts and really get in touch with you, is to email you at the word story@kgillette.com. It's on the screen. And can I assume also, Catherine, that if people have other questions that they did not get to ask today, that they can reach out to you? Maybe they're listening to the replay. Will you take questions via email as well?
Of course. Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let me just do one more check, see if there's anything else. Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap up for today. Looks like that's it. Usually a couple more questions come in after I say look like that's it. But yeah, Catherine, thank you so much. And I'll leave it to you with any parting words or thoughts before we say goodbye, and then look forward to seeing you next week.
Well, the parting words are just, welcome to really stepping into the role of being mentored. I love the idea. It sounds like everybody just totally got it and resonated with it. And I just think that's awesome, because that's really going to be a huge key because it's going to change the voice. It's going to change the way you create your content. And I'm really looking forward to taking you all through. And my goodness, the offer that Rob just made to be able to access the call next week and maybe even get even more goodie out of what he has to offer. Go for it, guys. I'll see you next week.
Awesome. Well, again, Catherine, thank you so much. Just a really impressive set of calls, and really appreciate you showing up and sharing and not holding back. This has just been phenomenal. So I will say goodbye to everybody, and goodbye to you, Catherine. And if you want to say the final goodbye, I'll disconnect after you say bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Bye.